Welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday morning. Howdy, everybody. We've got a few headlines to go through. Just you. Hey, howdy, Dr. Dragon Rider. Is this me? Alright, folks. Howdy. We do have a little bit of an update on what's going on. In Europe with this whole Russia situation. The latest news is that apparently, this is according to Russian press releases, I guess, if you want to call it that. Apparently these are all just giant military exercises, and there shouldn't be anything to worry about. Which is, in and of itself, pretty suspect. I mean, 100 and something thousand troops Nonetheless, we'll keep an eye out on what's going on there. What really gets me triggered is that the State Department from our end continues to insist that it is imminent that Russia will invade, but has yet to provide the ground on which that claim is to stand on. Howdy, Allium, trying Amazon Instant Coffee, regular and decaf. What? Why would you ever drink decaf coffee? That is the antithesis of what is supposed to be coffee. Putin wants attention. Putin wants land. Putin wants land. Putin wants, if not land, influence. That's what he wants. I don't know about attention. He definitely wants influence at the very least. As such, autocrats do. It's just 1% coffee? What? Then it's not coffee. If it's 1% coffee, then it's not coffee. It is an illusion of coffee. It was my doctor's orders to mix so caffeine does not make my heart race. Okay. A medical exemption has been granted. Oof, my allergies has been acting up these last couple of days. There's like a specific scent in this room that is triggering my allergies. I can't put my finger on it. I honestly think it was my sweater. I will have to check. Yeah, examining the room. Well, pretty soon, hopefully, there will be new changes coming. Pretty soon, there will be new changes coming on the way. Dr. Dragon Rider coming in hot with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. Thank you. I just got my booster yesterday after the two Moderna. The Pfizer booster made me feel fluish. Like a 12-hour side effect. That's good stuff. Nice. Not the side effects, though. Yeah, we did. Wait. I got one for that one, too. Yeah, listen, Dr. Dragon Rider, you let me know when Sam Cedar has these soundboard clips, okay? try getting that at the majority report. Do you think that that could be DMCA? Potentially, but I think it's also so short that it's fine. Yeah, you're right, Dr. Dragon Rider. I specifically made it less than 10 seconds for that exact reason. So I think we'll be fine. I have not received a DMCA for that. How much is the actual thing? Let me check. It's exactly 7 seconds. So I think that that's fine. Bradley and Matt said they were going to start monitoring Twitch. What? Listen, I got this, okay? It's okay. It's okay, I got this. I'm monitoring Twitch. Thundera redeeming a cute animal video. We'll get to that in a second. Maybe we should kick off the show with that. Oh, like interacting with us? Not again. Okay, I see. Okay, cool. Let me know. I'll figure out who it is. I'll figure out who's Matt and Bradley, so I can immediately ban them as soon as I see them. Just let me know. Watching Twitch wise so people can be doomer, true. Yeah, it's because they always read YouTube. Twitch doesn't exist in their eyes. Not cool. Listen, the only opinions that I allow on the majority report are my own, okay? The only opinions I allow in the majority report chat room are my own. I remember when Anna got banned from TYT when she created an account to watch Twitch because they thought she was a fake. What? That actually happened? That's hilarious. Some of the comments while the guests are on, I wouldn't want them to read, to be honest. Yeah. Truth, and Dara, especially if they're going to respond to the comments. That's oh man, can you imagine like attempting to respond to like poggers? Okay. I mean, I'm telling you, some people like who come into the majority report chat have like, I mean, it's the internet. Oh, and you do a great job over there, by the way. Sam does say poggers all the time now. Yes, that is true. That is very true. That is very, very true. Can you imagine if this is the new meta for the majority report where they're like, yes, and we are going to introduce guest X, Y, or Z, which chat has deemed poggers. If you're a right winger and go watch the majority report, you're likely to accidentally switch sides. Well, like the thing is, like, it's so funny because like quite often, I've seen where some, not all like conservatives or right wingers, but some have like the concept right here. It's like right at the tip of their nose. Wait, is it tip of the nose or tip of the tongue? I don't know. Whatever the analogy or saying goes. And it's like they're so close. So close sometimes. It's rare, but it happens, Dr. Dragon Rider. Sometimes while the guest is there, chat isn't even paying attention. They're just arguing. True. Yeah, that's kind of weird, champ, Thundera. Like, oh, I always like, no. Let's not do that. That's not, like, what is the appearance of the guest or the appearance of the crew have anything to do with anything. Sam could have his son stream Minecraft on a thumbnail to capture the younger audience. Yeah, that would be interesting. Like I said that. Well, I've said previously that something that would be cool is to imitate TYT. Well, at least a TYT Twitch model where you could have a rotating carousel of smaller content creators or people who are politically adjacent, and have like a carousel that keeps playing for a good while, like a TV program, you know. But I don't think that that's what they do really, because like TYT is an actual network, right? Like they're an actual media network versus like the Majority Report is a podcast kind of deal. The Majority Report is a show versus TYT is more of a network. But I mean, it could be interesting. It could be an interesting concept. And what if Emma did some sports commentary? Yeah, like I mean, that could happen, you know. And like I said, a carousel of people adjacent. Emma could have her own spot. Vinder could have his own spot, and like they just rotate, you know. Emma would just push betting and give her picks. Eventually, get sued. Is Emma the only one without a personal Twitch? Yeah, I don't think she has I don't think she does Twitch or anything like that. I know Binder has one. I know Left Reckoning has one. I know some of the producers have one. You'll see them in chat. I think our means is a producer behind the scenes. Nomiki? Wait, no, Nomiki doesn't have. Oh yeah, she does. Yeah, she does have. Well, she has the Nomiki Show Twitch, but I don't know if she uses that. I don't know if she uses that as a personal account. So I'm not sure. So what are your politics? I don't know. I think that does yeah, she was from TYT, but I don't know if she has like her own personal account, right? Like I've never seen Nomiki use like her own personal Twitch account. It's just for like the show, you know? I think I have never seen her use anything of the sort. Okay, be back after this meeting for sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Dragon Rider. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not sure, Thandera. All right. I asked because many Twitch streamers at this time of day are communists. Is there like a communist hour? I didn't know that. Yeah, I know it's a bad faith argument. That's why I never answered the question. That's why I never answered the question. And I also think that it's kind of weird that you would base your opinions based on the answer that somebody gives you, right? I always feel that's like super, super shallow to say, well, oh, I don't like because they just said that they were this. Like, okay, dude. way to engage with some critical thinking here. It's like midnight? Well, I didn't either way. If it was midnight in the morning, afternoon, I didn't know there was like a communist hour. You let me know if that's true. Communist power hour. Let's go. Alright, folks, we do have to get some of these headlines going. First and foremost, we do have a cute animal video, so let's start with that, and then we'll move on to the headlines. Because I know that if I don't do this cute animal video, I'm gonna forget.
If you're always asking, where next? Capital One has a new...
Stop trying to sell me credit cards. I want to see your if you default to something or have a more nuanced way to respond to that question. I always find it weird when people ask that question, because it's like you'll figure it out. The more you like listen to a person's positions, you can kind of gauge what they say. Because sometimes it's not that simple, and people who really latch on to a certain label, often can be very ideologically driven, and it kind of distorts the discourse. So I think that if you, despite being like partisan or whatever, you can still have a basis in reality, is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes, like, when people cling on to labels, it can distort that.
She has a baby in her mouth?
Aww.
Careful.
Their little cries are so cute. Aww. Poor little dudes.
Eyes open.
These pups are definitely like a couple weeks old, yeah? They got their eyes open. On the left, yeah, like, it's very obvious that where my biases lie. Those are cries of terror. Those are screams of terror. Yeah, they're probably very agitated as they're just being yeeted out of their nest, perceived nest.
Mom took one. So that makes 4.
She's like, Mama, help. It's okay, little buddies. Oh, no. Yeah, look at his eyes. Poor little dude. You alright?
You're alright.
I love these videos because these videos always are about animal rescues.
Good job, Mama. No, you're okay. Sorry. Come on.
He's like, no.
Sorry, Mama. Come on.
Come on, it's okay.
Back again. What a good mom. There you go. Good job. So strong. It's okay. Come on.
Okay. Good job, Mama. So strong.
There we go.
There you go. There's another one. Good, Mama.
Like, come here.
Good job. I'm not coming any closer. What a good mom.
Aww. That's cute. Mom goes and saves the day. I think that was a cute animal video. Rescued the baby trash pandas from the ceiling, and Mama came back and got them all. Yay. Alright. We've got so many headlines to go through, kind of. We'll see how much we can go. Oh, I think this one's a good one. Okay, so we've got...
This is why.
I hate these ads. Okay, here we go. Alright, some good memes. Let's start off with some good memes. One of MyPillow CEO banks has cut ties with him after a month, citing him as a reputation risk. Oh man, this guy is just keeps taking L's. The heck? Okay. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell has been terminated as a client by Minnesota Bank after a month of financial institution described him as a reputation risk. Yeah, true, I would too. Insider reviewed 2 letters sent to Lindell by the bank dated February 11th, and in one letter, the bank said Lindell's accounts with the bank would be closed by the end of business on February 18th. Any remaining collected balance in the account schedule will be closed will be mailed to the address we have on file. Lindell told Insider that he had 9 accounts at the bank and none were related to his MyPillow business. He said one account was connected to his website, Frank's Speech. Whatever happened to that? Another was linked to the Lindell Recovery Network and the Pillow CEO's platform for people with addiction. Lindell told Insider he was disgusted by the bank and accused it of debanking and canceling him. Yeah, because that's usually the default, right? Automod. That's kind of weird. Okay. There you go. Automod's being a little bit feisty. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, do not... First of all, they're wild animals. Let them be. And second of all, yes, it is possible that they have rabies, and you don't want that. So just leave wildlife alone. They just said Mike Lindell's in the public eye and we don't want to be part of the news. Yeah. Well, it's not about being part of the news. It's about being part of the news related to somebody who's gone so off the deep end that it's going to cause... It's just bad for business. Sorry. Lindell added that he thought someone had this is conspiratorial thinking. Someone got into the bank and motivated it to terminate its relationship with him, or in an effort to preserve their image and preserve their obvious status and profits, they drop someone as delusional as this guy so that it doesn't bring any bad press for them. I've been in the news every day for a long time now, of course, because you're a conspiratorial nut. Adding that the bank was trying to destroy him and Frank's Speech. They just want to attack Mike Lindell and close his accounts. That's what I think. Lindell told Insider he had secured a backup bank but declined to name it. He added that there wouldn't be any disruptions to broadcasting on Frank's Speech. Yeah, I forgot about this, to be quite honest. The website from which he hosts his nightly Lindell Report, an hour-long daily show. Man, one of these... Oh my goodness. I forgot that was even a thing, to be quite frank. According to Lindell, what? Who wrote this? Oh, his being subpoenaed by the January 6th Select Committee for his phone records raised concerns at the Minnesota Bank and Trust and its parent company, Heartland Financial USA. He said senior executives at the financial institution deemed them reputation risk in a call with MyPillow's financial controller, because they would be technically, right? But what if somebody came in and said, you know what, we're going to subpoena all of his account records and then this and that, and we make the news? Yeah, it's not about making the news. It's about making the news in relation to this delusional person. Cardell didn't respond to requests for comments on whether he was in the recordings, but the phone number, however, was linked to an office associated with him. A representative of the Minnesota Bank didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on the closing of Lindell's accounts. Yeah, so we continue to see that he could make a legit argument when he says cancel, but it sounds like a teenager on Twitter. Dropping delusional people only adds strength to delusions of the other legitimately medically needful people. Well, it might fuel his own, but the reality is not enough people believe any of what Lindell is saying, although it might strengthen his own delusions. Lindell remains one of the most vocal supporters of President Trump and recently told Insider he'd spent $25 million pushing Trump's voter fraud claims. Oh man, this guy just keeps digging deeper. He is embroiled in a $1.3 billion defamation suit with the voting machine company Dominion and a separate defamation suit with Smartmatic, both of which are suing him for peddling baseless voter fraud claims. Yeah, I think that like this guy's decline is due to that. Basically, he's going all in because he's got nothing else. He's going all in because if this goes through and if this is successful, then that's GG for him. So I think that's just kind of spiraled him out of reality. So he's just going all in on it, since at this point he's got everything to gain. What a sad person. Many people with paranoid schizophrenia, whenever something like this happens, explosions occur within space stations end up affecting real life. It's not good. Yeah, I mean, well, those spaces usually are contained because there isn't a widespread, the people who believe this, I think, are small and slowly decreasing in numbers. What? Trump organization dropped by accountants. Oh, okay. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, here we go. I mean, it's no surprise that he would back a far-right candidate in France, although I don't know what the purpose of that was. It would be no surprise that Donald Trump would endorse a far-right candidate in France. But the news that I want to go over is here. Meanwhile, the Trump Organization's longtime accounting firm, Mazars USA, is cutting ties with the company, writing in a court filing that the decades' worth of Donald Trump financial statements could no longer be relied upon. The president's company papers are at the center of a New York investigation into his affairs, one as he has decried as a political witch hunt. Right. The news comes as the U.S. Congressional Committee prepares to investigate Donald Trump's handling of administration of documents after 15 boxes of records were transferred from his Mar-a-Lago residence. The former president says he was under no obligation to hand over any materials, despite laws requiring him to do exactly that. Yeah, Donald Trump isn't exactly known for caring about what the law says or what procedure that would entail. The TLDR is that his accounting firm, who Mazars has been with him for quite some time, has officially declared that any of these things are just not reliable anymore, which gives kind of credence to the idea that absolutely he's been involved in some very dubious financial transactions, which kind of expands on the idea that, wow, is it really surprising that a lifelong con person is involved in a con? I think too many people wealthy people are deluded into their own mythos of success. True, because yeah, true. Yeah, TLDR, it's not that surprising that we would be finding out that Donald Trump's financial stuff isn't really reliable. A guy who has spent pretty much his entire life, his business life, lying and conning his way through. Surprised Pikachu face, his own accounting firm can't even confirm or anything regarding financial statements. So I think that that's going to come up soon. And in my opinion, they're gonna Al Capone him eventually. I think they're gonna Al Capone him eventually. You'll never know what the extent, whether or not he sees any consequences is yet to be seen, but it seems like that's the route. We'll never know to the extent of what he's done. True. True. Nonetheless, we'll see what happens if there's any accountability. That remains to be seen. Conservative Joe Manchin on Monday said he would not support confirming another nominee selected by Biden for the Supreme Court immediately before the 2024 presidential election, clarifying remarks that he made earlier about the midterms. Manchin said that he would prefer to wait until the country knows who will occupy the White House in 2025. Manchin walked back the comment he made earlier afternoon, indicating that he would not support confirming a second Biden nominee to the Supreme Court if another vacancy occurs shortly before the November midterms. Asked if the Senate should act if another seat becomes vacant later in the year closer to the election, Manchin responded, "I'm not going to be hypocritical on that. If it comes a week or 2 weeks before, like it did with our last Supreme Court nominee, I think it's time. That's a time it should go to the next election." Wait. So basically rules, so the rules apply to only one side? Is that what you're saying? So if there should be a Supreme Court nominee, you're just basically saying to the Republican Party that the rules just really don't mean anything, right? Only the Democrats are going to follow the procedure. Only the Democrats are going to follow the norms. Because this isn't a rule, you know that, right? That's not like set in stone. That's not legislative. There's no constitutional provision or whatever that says you cannot approve a Supreme Court nominee should it come close to the election. Like, there's no rules in that. It's kind of like an understood norm out of courtesy, which the Republican Party steamrolled over that. That's pathetic. Manchin's comments immediately attracted attention on Twitter after several reporters posted his comments, and he then explained to reporters that he misspoke. Excuse me. That he would only support holding up a Supreme Court confirmation proceeding immediately before the next presidential election. I was referring to that election before a major presidential election. That's the position he and other Democrats took in the fall of 2020 after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in September of that year. Democrats insisted that then Senate Majority Leader McConnell wait until the election to move a nominee so that the winner of the presidential contest could make the choice, the same position McConnell took in 2016 when he blocked President Obama's Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland from getting a Senate hearing or vote. Yeah, so like when it's convenient, they'll invoke that rule or procedure. But when it's not, then they'll just steamroll right over it. And I mean, basically, the Republican Party has opened the doors to kind of throw that out the window, right? If they can do it, then why are they the ones that are special, right? Why are they the ones that are especially that are special to avoid that norm? Because it's a norm. It's not set in any type of law or anything of the sort. Manchin was outspoken in opposing McConnell's plan to speed the president's third Supreme Court nominee. Okay, but knowing that they're not playing ball, knowing that they're the ones that are violating norms, knowing that they're the ones who are willing to push the envelope. I mean, okay. Jesus Christ. Rushing to confirm a Supreme Court nominee weeks before a presidential election has never done before in the history of our nation and will only fan the flames of a division. Yeah, but when they do it, it's okay. They already opened that door. If they wanted to, if the Republican Party had any concerns about the divisions of our country or whatever, then they should have respected that from the beginning, but they didn't. Quote, I cannot support a process that risks further division of the American people at a time when we desperately need to come together. I will not vote to confirm Judge Coney Barrett or any Supreme Court nominee before the election day on November 3rd. I urge my Republican friends to slow down, put people before politics, and give their constituents a chance to vote, which they didn't. So why are you giving them the same credence? When the Senate considers nominees to the Supreme Court, it is particularly important that we act fairly and consistently using the same set of rules, no matter which political party is in power, she said in light of 2020. Well, unfortunately, the majority of the Republican Party does not care. Murkowski voted against a motion to end debate on Barrett's nomination and advanced her nomination. So her words... Wait, are these the same people? Okay, I see, but she voted aye on the final confirmation vote. I voted no on the motion to proceed yesterday because I have stated on multiple occasions since 2016 I do not believe the Senate should take up a Supreme Court nomination this close to a presidential election. Explaining her vote no on the procedural motion, but then at the end of the day you just voted yes anyway, so... Manchin voted to confirm Trump's second nominee to the Supreme Court weeks before the 2018 midterms. He was the only Democrat to vote for Trump's pick after a bruising confirmation battle. Good memes. Good memes. Thanks, President Manchin. Really, really a rock of principles. Truly a defender of principles and norms. Oh man, this is unbelievable to me. If the Republican Party is incapable of maintaining norms, then maybe our democracy shouldn't be hanging on by procedure and norms that aren't legislated. Just saying. If the Republican Party is so eager or so willing to forego norms, then maybe either the Democratic Party starts doing the same thing, or you begin to move to legislate some of these things. That way, there's no if, and, or buts about it, and there could be contentions if something gets violated. Because otherwise, basically, one of the most important things, or I guess one of the most... how should I say, one of the things that impacts a lot of people would be a Supreme Court nominee, and if that procedure is being hanged on by like norms, that's not very healthy. That's not very good. I don't know what conflicts of interest he had here. They're only going to not allow corporate nominees. Yeah, but the problem I'm having here is that Joe Manchin is so willing, so headstrong in keeping norms when the other party is not willing. So what is the point? What exactly is the point of you being there? And furthermore, what exactly is the point of having norms and procedures if one party is allowed to violate them and one party doesn't? That's my problem here. They all win and in the end we all lose? True. True. So basically, in terms of like the nominee, I don't even know. Like I'm expecting the Democratic Party to just drop this one too. Hey. Nobody asked you, Bixby. So weird. Because those aren't even norms. They were just made up rules because they wanted to obstruct Obama, and it's the Dems' fault for legitimizing it. Yeah, and now they've not only have they legitimized it, they've cornered themselves unnecessarily, because that wasn't like a law. That's not law at all. And if one party doesn't want to follow said made-up rules, then what? You can't have a process, you can't have a democracy that's being held together by norms and made-up senatorial procedure rules. Anyways, good memes. Thanks, President Manchin, for further exposing just how cracked and flawed and almost non-existing democratic processes. Thanks. Cool. Good memes. Thanks, President Manchin. Really what we needed now is, what's the difference between him and Mitch McConnell, to be quite frank? What's the difference between him and Mitch McConnell? Yeah, the answer to that is nothing. It's indistinguishable. If I just didn't name anybody, if I didn't name anybody here, would you be able to tell? Would you be able to tell if whether or not this was the same exact argument that was being used when it was flipped? Both sides are suffering. Both states are suffering in the same ways. Yeah. It's almost like conservative policies. Oof. Yep. It's almost like conservative policies end up messing things up, yeah? This isn't just my opinion. Seems to be the pattern that continues to happen. And just to be clear, this is not, this is a misnomer. This dude, by any stretch of the imagination, is not a centrist in any way, shape, or form. Just to clarify. I haven't really followed the Winter Olympics that much, simply because, well, I just don't follow the Olympics, period. It's just, sports to me is not, sports to me is not like the focus. Same thing with the Super Bowl, same thing with other sports. I just don't pay attention that much. But this one actually has some discourse. Hassan was right. Manchin has to do this because if he was a Republican, no one would care and he'd have no power. I guess. Only one reliable host city would be left for the Winter Olympics if global emissions are not curbed. As the 2022 Winter Olympics are underway in China, researchers are already looking ahead to how the planet can sustain holding future Olympic Games as climate changes impacts the winter season across the Northern Hemisphere. Researchers from the US, Canada, and Austria conducted a study to measure how significantly global greenhouse gas emissions would impact the Winter Olympics. The results found that only one of 21 cities that had previously hosted the Olympics would be able to not only provide reliable, safe, but also fair conditions for snow sports by the end of the century. Cool. And also to be noted is that they had to import snow for this one. For this Olympics, they had to import snow. Winter is changing at the past Olympic Winter Game locations, and an important perspective to understand climate change risk is that of the athletes who put themselves at risk during these mega sport events. Researchers used the UN's Paris Climate Agreement as its barometer for climate change progress, noting that if emission targets can be achieved, the number of climate-reliable cities jumped to 8, with only 6 considered unreliable. In 2015, the Paris Agreement was created to incentivize countries to reach global peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible so that the planet could be climate neutral by the mid-century. Yeah, good memes. It was adopted by 196 countries and required plans for climate action called nationally determined contributions, which none of this has amassed to any reality whatsoever. We've blown past so many of these goals. So many of these goals, metrics, that it's really... it's just not happening. Hey, Skater Deer, how's it going? He's pretending to be a Democrat for power and money, maybe. Maybe. Not sure at the point of him being there. It's a morning, hope you're well. Hope you're doing alright, we're hanging in there. The treaty aims to limit global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. However, researchers found that the average daytime temperature in February in the Olympic host cities has steadily increased from 0.4 degrees at games held in 1920s to 1950s to 3.1 degrees at games held during the 60s and 90s, and now 6.3 degrees in the games in the 21st century, which includes current Beijing Games. The 21st century warming is expected to increase by an additional 2 to 4.4 degrees Celsius, depending on which emission reduction plan countries adopt. At this point in time, we have no legitimate plan, it seems. So as long as we keep going down the path of business as usual, we'll be looking at closer to the higher end of the spectrum. Depending on which emission reduction plans countries adopt, climate change is altering the geography of the Winter Olympic Games and will unfortunately take away some host cities that are famous for winter sports. Most host locations in Europe are projected to be marginal or not reliable as early as 2050s or even in the low emission future. Yeah, so even if we do the best, even if we do our best efforts and do what we need to do, even then, there might be some areas that will still be unreliable for the Winter Olympics. In other words, this is not good, folks, and we should be doing everything possible to mitigate this. Hey, Astro, how's it going? As part of their study, researchers also surveyed 339 elite athletes and coaches from 20 countries to define fair and safe conditions for snow sports competitions, which found that the frequency of unfair and unsafe conditions have increased under all future climate change scenarios. Yikes. Researchers noted that athlete safety has been an important perspective missing from the limited research on climate change and the Olympics. Athletes with serious injury, whether that's from skiing down steep slopes, or hitting the super pipe on a snowboard, and the studies of injury incident rates recorded among Olympic, Paralympic, alpine skiing, snowboarding, freestyle athletes were 55% higher versus other Olympic Winter Games. Climate change could worsen already dangerous conditions, as researchers said scenarios like adverse snow conditions, athlete heat stress, and equipment failures were often caused by warmer temperature. For example, warmer temperatures make snow heavy and unsafe at high speeds. It can also make courses too slushy, causing the athlete's speed to slow down and force unsafe landings. The bottom line is that climate change is not an issue that the IOC, sporting organizations, or athletes and coaches can solve alone, but the researchers concluded that a society-wide response to this, concluding that needs a society-wide response to this grand challenge. I mean, yeah, it's a global problem, of course. Yes, it's a global problem. However, in the context, it's a great opportunity to insert the importance of this issue now that we're talking about the Winter Olympics. It is a grey and wet London today. Oof. Isn't it? Like the common theme? Just that, so it's just another regular day in London then. Something to think about, right? Something to think about. Like climate change, even within 2050, that's not that long, folks. That will definitely be within my lifetime, that's for sure. I will absolutely see this firsthand. I will see the effects of this firsthand. 2050 is but, 28 years? No. Hold on, I can't do math. Oh no, it turns out I can do math. Yep, 2050 from now is about 28 years. I will be more than alive to see this. I will be more than alive to see this. Antarctica's hidden under ice rivers could play a significant role in sea level rise. Sea level rise is something that is incredibly important when it comes to climate change because, should warming continue down the path it will, there's going to be serious problems across the coast, island nations, all of this. Underneath Antarctica's vast ice sheet, there's a network of rivers and lakes. This is possible because the insulating blanket of ice above, the flow from heat within the earth, and the small amount of heat generated as the ice deforms. Water lubricates the base of the ice sheets, allowing ice to slide towards the ocean at speeds of many hundreds of meters per year. When the water emerges from beneath the ice, it enters a cold and salty cavity underneath the ice shelves and the floating extensions of ice sheets on the fringe of the continent. Here, the water mixes and releases nutrients and sediment and melts under the underside of the ice shelves, which act as a buttress and hold back the flow of ice sheets. How these processes play out over the next century? Hey, whoa, Jesus. Pretty sure I didn't click on any of that. Okay. How these processes play over the next century is a major factor in understanding sea level rise. Unfortunately, it's also one of the least explored parts of our planet. Our Ayatoria New Zealand Antarctic Ice Science Platform project is the first direct survey of an Antarctic under-ice river, and its reports earlier research suggesting that these subglacial rivers form estuaries as they flow into the ocean, albeit at 82 degrees south, hidden under 500 meters or 1,640 feet of ice and about 500 kilometers from the open ocean. Jeez. Our team has just returned from Cam by stream on the West Antarctic ice sheet. Cam is a sleeping giant. This massive river of ice lies on the other side of the WAIS from the Thwaites Glacier, Antarctica's Doomsday Glacier, which we talked about, which is pretty worrisome. That has been losing ice rapidly. Cam used to flow fast, but this ceased about 160 years ago because of changes in how water was distributed at the base of the ice. While the Cam region isn't vulnerable to ocean warming at the present time, it currently offsets much of the ice loss happening elsewhere in Antarctica. Changes at the Cam will herald major changes for Antarctic's ice sheets and oceans. Yeah, this is another example of how something that we don't really or haven't really taken into account creates domino effects that we're just beginning to kind of realize now. One challenge is that ice sheet responds to external changes such as rising ocean temperatures, but also difficult to predict internal changes such as flood events that occur when sub-ice rivers and lakes burst their banks. The COVID pandemic has been hard on national Antarctic programs and the field science they support. Global supply and freight delays kept our team on edge in the lead up to our season. This summer, New Zealand started to rebuild its main Antarctic station, Scott Base, and has been developing an over-snow traverse to deploy large teams across great distances. Our camp team was one of the first to benefit from this new capability, with a camp operating for months more than 900 kilometers from New Zealand's permanent station. There's an art to drilling through Antarctic ice. In reality, we melt our way through with recycled hot water. Once on site, the team was able to drill through 500 meters of ice shelf and kept a 0.4 diameter hole open for nearly 2 weeks. This allowed us to take samples and gather observations for a diverse range of science projects. Almost a decade of research paid off when the team pinpointed the exact spot to drill to hit the onset of the narrow river beneath. This was even more impressive than initially thought, with the borehole survey reveals a river more than 250 meters high, but less than 200 meters wide, a much narrower target than indicated by the surface heightscape. Working from a borehole means we can only look in one spot. As an antidote to this limitation, colleagues at Cornell University deployed their ocean robot ice fin to study the space below the ice. Nice. One of the discoveries that will keep the team going for some time is dense community of likely amphipods, which we spotted when we lowered cameras to the seafloor. The swarm was so dense we first thought that there was something wrong with our equipment. The last task the team was completed was to deploy an ocean mooring beneath the ice. These instruments will continue to report back on ocean conditions over the coming years. Only 5 days after deployment, we detected a tsunami from the Hunga Iapai volcanic eruption. Apart from baseline observations, such discoveries provide strong motivation for deploying long-term monitoring equipment. The team will be watching closely over the years for any changes in the under-ice river flows, including flood events. Cool. Fascinating. Oh, Posada bot caught that way faster than I did. That's for sure. That's pretty cool. Thanks, Posada bot. Thanks for the shout out, of course. Study finds Western mega drought is the worst in 1,200 years. Yeah. This is gonna go great. Shrunk reservoirs, depleted aquifers, low rivers, raging wildfires. It's no secret that the western U.S. is in a severe drought. New research published on Monday shows just how extreme the situation has become. The western US and northern Mexico are experiencing their driest period in at least 1,200 years, according to a new study published in the journal Nature Climate Change. The last comparable, though not a severe multi-decade megadrought, occurred in the 1500s when the West was still largely inhabited by indigenous tribes. It was immediately caught. I'm impressed. Yeah, thank you, PasadaBot. Good morning. I saw it happen, but I couldn't read it in time. It was just a bot. You know those like random bots that come into channels asking for to buy viewers or subs. That's it. It was just a bot asking for money or to buy viewers and primes. Apparently, they were attempting to also, I assume, spam a link, but that's not a thing here. How's it going, Heat? Today, the region is home to tens of millions of people, massive agricultural centers, and some of the fastest growing cities in the US, all in an area where there's less water available than there was in the past, partially due to human-caused climate change. We have a society that's relying on there being an amount of water there was in the 1900s. Jesus Christ. Said the study's lead author, Park Williams, a bioclimatologist at the University of California, Los Angeles. But now with the number of water molecules available to us declining, it's really time for us to get real about how much water there is for us to use. Williams looked at a tree ring data from thousands of sites to conduct research. The research sampled data collected from live trees, dead trees, and wood beams preserved at Native American archaeological sites. The tree rings gave Williams insight into the drought events dating back to AD 800, around the time when Charlemagne was being crowned Emperor of Rome. Jesus. That's why Sari bought Twitch channel. It's caught many bots. Oh yeah, I have Sari bot. Sari bot's around here. Pretty sure Sari bot is here. Yep, Sari bot's here. Good, I have data again, so I can watch today. What? The internet gods have blessed. He identified 4 other megadroughts in that time period, most notably being a 23-year drought that ended in the late 1500s. There's hopes during a wet 2019 that the current megadrought was following a similar pattern, and then from the summer of 2020 through the fall of 2020, through all of 2021, it was just exceptionally dry across the West, indicating that this drought is nowhere near done. Western water managers were again hopeful for a change at the beginning of this winter. In December, California, Sierra Nevada had a record-breaking snowfall and big snowstorms blanketed the northern Rockies, but a hot, dry start to the year has since dropped snowpack levels to below average in many places. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the country's 2 largest reservoirs, are filled at only about 1/3 of their total capacity. Communities, ranchers, and farmers have depleted groundwater stores to meet demands. Yikes. Yikes. I suspect that most of this would probably be due to ranchers and farmers, I would assume. Federal water managers declared the first ever water shortage along the Colorado River last year, triggering cuts to some of the river's 40 million users. Jesus. It was recognition that the hydrology that was planned for years ago but we'd hoped we'd never see is here. Yeah. The Colorado River Basin has no longer the privilege of time, said Kim Mitchell, a senior water policy advisor at the Western Resource Advocates, an environmental nonprofit, after hearing news about the research. After hearing about the new research, it is imperative for water managers in the West to incorporate a smaller Colorado River into future operations and pull out all the stops in scaling up basin-wide conservation. Incremental solutions just won't be enough. Yet when it comes to like climate change, I think that there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. After numerous data, decades worth of information, the overwhelming consensus, almost borderline unanimous consensus, is that this just can't wait. The climate crisis can't wait. Human-caused climate change contributes to drought. Existing management guidelines for Colorado River are set to expire in 2026. The 7 states that draw from the watershed are negotiating with the federal government, Native American tribes, and Mexico over what future management should look like. Last December, Nevada, Arizona, and California agreed to take less water from the Colorado River in an effort to prop up Lake Mead, and more cuts could follow. This is a wake-up call for everyone. Adele Hage Khalil, General Water Manager for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, told KUNC. For all of us, we are facing a new normal when it comes to climate change. Yeah, it's already here. Williams' study's author said roughly 1/5 of the current mega drought can be attributed to human-caused climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions are warming the world, speeding evaporation and disrupting weather patterns. He described water patterns in the West as a yo-yo, sometimes high, sometimes low. Climate change has put that yo-yo on an escalator heading down, and we cannot let ourselves get tricked by a few wet years into giving up the progress we've been making. We actually have to change our relationship with water. Yeah, it turns out, and this is true, humans need water to live. I know. It's a shocking statement. Humans need water to live. And it is undeniable that the path that we are continuing to go on will just lead to more people having water insecurity. I mean, look at this. This is just wild. This is just wild. Climate change is here, and failure to act as quickly as possible in as many ways as possible will only exacerbate this. Will only exacerbate this.
In 1985, one company decided to profit off of the environmental fervor that had pervaded the 70s. They ran a series of ads like this one.
Do people really do these things just to help an endangered species make it through the night?
Hey, sourcing, how's it going? Next thing you'll say is we need O2 and stable climates. True. I know, it's just unfathomable. Right?
People do.
The ads were part of the People Do campaign, which highlighted how workers were changing landscapes to aid local wildlife. The campaign was such a success that it ran well into the 1990s, and the ads even won an Effie Advertising Award for Green Eco-Marketing in 1991. But these commercials had a sinister purpose. One that masked the environmental pollution and destruction of the company that made them. Today, we're going to unpack so-called corporate responsibility and greenwashing. what it means, how commercials and tactics like the People Do campaign work, and why corporations like the one that made those commercials don't care about us or the planet. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream.
Dr. Marty, which one is better for my cat? Wet cat food or ginger?
A lot of people.
What?
Or commercials and tactics like the People Do campaign work, and why corporations like the one that made those commercials don't care about us or the planet. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream, which now comes with Nebula for free when you sign up using the link in the description.
Okay.
The late 1980s weren't a good time for Chevron's environmental track record. In 1985, one of the company's refineries had just been exposed for contaminating the local groundwater by leaking millions of barrels of oil into the ground.
Yeah, and like, just to be clear, like, they continue to act this way. So this isn't like an old thing. They flooded the desert to make Lake Powell, so now the Earth is taking her land back. Howdy, sis cat Drew. Spaffer, how's it going?
Then 3 years later, the company paid $550,000 to settle a lawsuit brought in connection with toxic emissions at its plant in Richmond, California. Then again, in 1991, it pleaded guilty to violating both the Clean Water and Clean Air Acts, paying millions of dollars in damages. So the fossil fuel giant decided to do something about their tattered public image. Starting in 1985, Chevron shelled out somewhere between $5 to $10 million a year to create the People Do campaign. That's right, the company behind those nature-filled commercials was the oil corporation Chevron. Throughout the campaign, Chevron...
Good memes. Now that's a good meme. Now that's a good meme.
Paid an estimated $200,000 to make each 30-second ad that marketed initiatives like their butterfly preserve.
The El Segundo blue lives on wild buckwheat, on land that's part of an oil refinery.
A preserve that cost just $5,000 a year to maintain. A mere glance at the price tag reveals where the oil corporation's motives lie. But this type of ad campaign is common for corporations, especially large multinationals. Fast forward to today, and greenwashing, or using environmental rhetoric to boost sales or brand image while simultaneously polluting or destroying the environment, pervades marketing campaigns. From oil giants like Exxon,
carbon capture is important technology,
to Nestle,
at Nestle, we steward water resources,
right down to Instagram ads on your feed. Each of these companies have a vested stake in misleading you into believing that the product they're selling, and ultimately their company,
that's a good meme,
is aiding in social and environmental change. But when it comes to greenwashing, there is a lot more at stake than getting misled. From behind his desk in the economics department of the University of Chicago, Milton Friedman, the father of neoliberal economics, penned an op-ed for the New York Times. The year was 1970.
Some jobs will let you unionize, true, but that would be illegal. So, yeah, that would be illegal.
And government regulation was trendy in the halls of Congress, passing numerous laws seeking to protect environmental and human well-being. But Friedman saw it differently. In his view, these regulations were not only bogging down corporations, but they were also forcing businesses to do something that they were not meant to do. In his view, the only social responsibility of corporations is to turn a profit.
True. That's basically the only thing they care about.
For their shareholders. Regulations, according to Friedman, just slowed down the machine of progress. This is the core of neoliberalism, a theory of deregulation and free market business that is foundational to American and global enterprise today. Profit above all else. which is why
True.
greenwashing and claims of corporate responsibility must be seen less as harmless misdirection and more as tools essential to the capitalist quest of expanding corporate profits. Under capitalism, a corporation's primary goal is to generate profit for shareholders and the capitalist class. To do otherwise, to carve out space for the environment or, God forbid, the working class, would mean fewer investors, less profit, and ultimately bankruptcy. If, however, a company like Nestle, H&M, or Chevron can be seen as working towards the common good through PR campaigns and savvy marketing without having to fundamentally change their business operations, then they've just protected or even expanded their profits. But there are also a couple of other reasons why so-called corporate social responsibility and its offshoot greenwashing are so insidious. For one, it rewrites the narrative of what change and climate action means. BP's
Yeah, not only that, like, we've seen these terms that are continuously being co-opted, especially, gotta jump. Hey, Dr. Dragon Rider, thank you so much for joining us here. Greenwash equals, yes, exactly. Extracted from indigenous sacred lands, from Nevada to Pachamama, Brazil. Yep. Corporations often co-opt meaningful terms like net zero as their own now and greenwash the term to the point where we can't even use it anymore.
carbon footprint campaign is a perfect example of this. By redirecting public attention from their oil spills and emissions back towards our own personal carbon footprint, the oil giant made climate action much more about individual endeavors than corporate malfeasance. We see this again and again, such as with H&M's campaigns that co-opt phrases like eco-warrior and climate crusader to get you to buy more clothes. Essentially, these marketing schemes make us think that we can buy our way out of social problems, when in reality, the very companies we are buying from are causing those social problems.
Right.
The second way greenwashing is so threatening is that it lulls us into a false sense of security. If we believe that corporations are changing for the good, then we can sit back and let them do their work. This is exactly what Chevron's People Do campaign was all about. Indeed, Chao Gunter, director of the Public Media Center in San Francisco, notes that through their misleading ads, Chevron implies that maybe we don't need a regulatory framework because oil companies are taking care of it. In short, if corporations can trick us into trusting them to do good, then they can do whatever they want. Greenwashing allows for businesses to continue their destructive practices by tossing scraps to us and claiming that they're giving us a whole meal. Because any real change, any effective climate action means changing the paradigm. Real solutions to the climate crisis, like degrowth, building with local materials, agroecological farming, and eco-socialism, all spell disaster for corporations because it means shifting priorities away from profits and towards people and planet. Regardless of what these companies say, their actions speak louder than their words. In 1988, while their ads were blanketing TVs and magazines,
that part is true. We've seen time and time again, particularly ExxonMobil, is probably the most egregious one out of all of these, continuously to engage in these sort of PR campaigns and greenwashing campaigns and are heavily invested in attempting to preserve this image, when in reality, in the back end, they are lobbying people like President Joe Manchin and other governmental officials and senators and representatives to support or not support legislation based on whatever they need. One of this example is the way they successfully torpedoed any hopes of any even notions and any notion of any climate legislation. Carbon reserves remove natives from their indigenous lands and claim that it is carbon sink, while the original people are forbidden to subsist, gather, hunt, or live there anymore. That's horrifying.
Chevron's El Segundo refinery leaked an estimated 252 million gallons of oil into the surrounding groundwater. And to this day, Chevron refuses to clean up an oil spill so egregious that it came to be known as the Amazon Chernobyl. From 1964 to 1992, Texaco, which is now owned by Chevron, dumped 72 billion liters of toxic water, polluting a 1,700-mile area in the Ecuadorian rainforest and tainting the water supply for indigenous communities living near the oil wells. But Chevron isn't the only corporation claiming they're doing good while they quietly destroy our surroundings. Home Depot, for example, recently had to pay a $28 million settlement because it illegally dumped toxic waste in California despite running marketing campaigns aimed at consumers to recycle their homemaking materials. And Nestle, with its claims of sustainable
Nestle, that's really rich.
Water and packaging, is anything but sustainable. First of all, wrapping water in plastic is causing a single-use plastic waste crisis. But to add insult to injury, Nestle's subsidiaries like Arrowhead Water, which sources its water partly from California Springs, an area notoriously racked by a mega drought, have been repeatedly accused of sucking aquifers dry wherever they operate. These exploitative corporate practices reveal that to make the most profit they can, corporations try to externalize as many costs as they can. And if they can say they aren't externalizing those costs while they actually are, then they've won. But at the price of the planet and the people slaving away under brutal conditions.
Professor Terrence Tao is the equivalent of a rock star in
Whoa.
Greenwashing and
yeah, like this has been a consistent theme time and time again, where we see corporations say one thing and in the back they continue to destroy the planet for the sake of profit. That's literally it. It's just as if you want to simplify it as much as possible, that's what it is.
Corporate social responsibility are tactics. Plain and simple. They're used as ways to distract from the metaphorical boot on our throats and on the throat of our planet. These misleading marketing campaigns are just another example of the resilience of capitalism. For as long as capitalism continues to reign, so too will the laborious task of deciphering misleading messaging. Capitalism is the problem. Think about how hard it is to find quote-unquote sustainable goods. And even after all that hard work, it's still difficult to figure out whether the company is telling the truth. Because here's the thing, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. But the reason why there is no ethical consumption under capitalism is because there are no ethical corporations under capitalism. Even B corporations like Patagonia are still driven by the profit motive and the bottom line. All this means that to end greenwashing, to create economies where materials and goods are crafted to fulfill uses rather than to fill wallets and make profits, we must end capitalism. But building the power to do so, especially in imperial core countries like the United States, is a multi-decade process, and the climate crisis demands action now. Which is why we need to start implementing harm reduction strategies that use available tools today. These look like forcing corporate transparency through lawsuits, third-party auditing, and using regulating bodies to actually enforce regulations as a way to make corporations live up to their promises. But importantly, these harm reduction strategies must mesh with the longer-term work of building a post-capitalist world, one that envisions an economy built on truths, on real environmental stewardship, and on human and community well-being. Of all the big multinationals professing to be climate saviors, Nestle is certainly one of the worst. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to fully dive into Nestle's greenwashing campaigns in this video, so instead I made a little bonus part about Nestle's environmental practices, and I've uploaded that section as an extended edition of this video on the streaming platform my creator friends and I built called Nebula.
Yeah, and also I would add to that, ExxonMobil, Amazon, all these large multinational corporations who really their only responsibility technically to them in their eyes, ethically or otherwise, is to their shareholders, is to go and show how much profits they made or how profitable the company was this quarter. That is it. That is literally the only thing that they are driven by, because that's their responsibility, right? In their eyes, that's the purpose of a corporation. That is the purpose of a corporation. If it cannot deliver profits, if it cannot deliver value for their shareholders, then that corporation fails. Sorry about that, folks. For some reason, I can't see, I can't see chat. Patagonia has a multi-million-dollar contract to create uniforms for the military-industrial complex. The public gets spin-off designs taken from the military design gear. What? Patagonia has a special line of gear that is entirely and only accessible by law enforcement agencies? Yikes. If it doesn't make dollars, then it doesn't make sense. True. The core philosophy, basically. If it doesn't make dollars, then it doesn't make sense. Overall, I think that was a decent video, and truly kind of brings home the realities that corporations aren't here to save us. And we should be wary about what we're told. We run the world like a 90s rap song. I guess throwing it in theme with the recent Super Bowl, I guess. That is very true, though.
Chief Human Resources Officer. Chief.
All right, let's see what
This episode and others like it are made
Let's see what information we can get from this. Let's see how right
possible by
we
the
got
generous
this
support
one.
of my patrons on Patreon. In some other news, if you haven't heard already, I recently started a podcast with Hakeem and Ugopnik. It's called The Deprogram, and it's a show dedicated to helping listeners shake off the capitalist programming we've all been subjected to over the years. We tackle all sorts of topics, from theory to current events to culture, and just generally have a good time. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, be sure to check it out by following the link below. Show of hands, how many of you are watching this at work? If you are, good for you, steal back some of that time. But as this episode will explain, there's an increasing likelihood that you're not watching this at work, because you told your boss to pound sand, changed all the work displays to Big Chungus, and pulled the fire alarm on your way out, never to return. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the recent massive wave of resignations, why it's happening, and the state of the US labor market as a whole. Okay, time for a quick refresher in case any of you were off the grid for the last couple years. If you were, lucky you. In early 2020, we got a new plague. Things got bad pretty quickly, and countries around the world developed their own strategies for overcoming this viral challenge. Some countries chose to do it the right way. Lockdowns, mass testing, common sense precautions, delivering food and supplies to people, and so on. Others decided to sacrifice their population on the altar of capitalism so that a handful of ultra-rich vampires could buy a smaller yacht to ferry them to and from their mega yacht. I'm not joking. For the next 2 years, American workers were put through the ringer. They were called essential workers, applauded, and thanked profusely for their service. Unfortunately, applause and boats doing donuts do not inoculate essential workers against a deadly virus, and as a result of being required to work to survive, hundreds of thousands of them did not. The stress of working in these conditions was overwhelming, and millions of Americans decided they were not going to die for their bosses. Resignations went through the roof, far exceeding any numbers on record. Then, when the CDC flipped a switch and made COVID not bad anymore because corporations got grumpy, those same workers were cast aside and derided as low skill, despite being literally the only thing keeping the economy running during the pandemic. As you might imagine, people were shocked and upset at this abrupt change, and the resignations continued. 2 years, or in American terms, nearly 1 million lives from the start of the pandemic, and we're currently seeing an average of nearly 4,000 COVID deaths a day in the United States. A 9/11's worth of deaths every single day, and
yeah, keep in mind this is agitprop. 100%. I'm presently doing research work around understanding this great resignation. My opinion, anyone who presently saying they know why it's happening is engaged in motivated reasoning. It's highly complex. There's a lot of factors at play. Yeah, I agree with that. For one, the pandemic is a factor. And the pandemic itself set off domino effects that are just now coming to the surface, right? Just economically speaking. Not only did we have people realizing that they did not want to actually work in a unsafe, at the time, in the unsafe conditions, but the economic domino effects that happened also could be potentially a motivator for why people resigned. I mean, it turns out people don't want to work shit jobs for shit wages, and they realize that now, in any modern recent time, now workers have a little bit more power than previous. Yeah, all of these are factors. I have a hypothesis that I'm investigating, but it's really tough to clean data. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's just simple, cut and dry. But certainly some of this is due to the pandemic.
And our government is pretending it's not happening, that the pandemic is over, that everything is back to normal. more and more Americans are coming to grips with the fact that this is not the case, and that our leaders have chosen the almighty economy over the lives of our friends, our family, and our co-workers. So, that brings us up to speed. Depressed yet? Hang in there. I've got some concrete suggestions at the end. Now, it's pretty obvious that working during a pandemic can lead to some suboptimal conditions, and it makes perfect sense that many people would rather quit than risk dying. But resignation numbers have been steadily increasing for a long time. In fact, with just one exception during the Great Recession, resignation rates have been on the rise for the entire 20 years it's been tracked. Why is that?
Oh my god, stop it. Okay. It is almost certainly due to the pandemic. The pattern for related signals hits the same timelines. Right, the pandemic triggered domino effects that were still, we might see this for a bit more longer, I would say.
The obvious answer, and the one you've no doubt heard on this channel before, is that work is simply getting worse in every conceivable way. Wages have stagnated and are nowhere close to keeping up with inflation or the skyrocketing cost of living.
That's right. And then the pandemic happened. Right? And then the pandemic happened. So basically we were steadily moving into this precipice, and the pandemic just yeeted us into that. Review data on sites like Glassdoor, Indeed, etc. spiked by 5% of the summer of 2020. Wow.
Vacation days and sick days are a thing of the past. Parental leave is non-existent. Pensions have vanished. You're expected to be on call at all hours. Your manager can text you on your day off and demand you come in and cover the shift of a sick coworker. Even the fabled upward mobility once you're hired is no longer possible in most scenarios. This is all stuff that our parents and grandparents took for granted. And as the disease of capitalism has progressed into its later stages, those job benefits have been consumed by the never-ending search for greater corporate profits.
So companies that average 100 reviews jump to 500,
like it was in, say, 2000. And if the older people lambasting the youth for their laziness and entitlement would just take a few days and apply for a handful of jobs online, I think they'd realize just how different everything is from when they were in their prime working years. But there's another aspect of work under capitalism that is equally important to understand. Let's talk about alienation. In the not-so-distant past, human beings, at least a portion of the population, had relative autonomy and control of their lives. Merchants and craftspeople owned what are called the means of production. The carpenter had control of his woodworking process from beginning to end. He made his own furniture, and he owned the finished product until he sold it to someone else. The bootmaker made a pair of boots, and they were his. The product of his labor belonged to him. As capitalism developed, this began to change. Factories were built, and they needed labor. As poor workers flocked to the cities from the countryside, they took their places along the production chain, and in exchange for a wage, they traded their autonomy, their agency, and became just one cog in a much larger machine, fracturing the work that used to be done by one person or a small team into many different hyper-specialized pieces so that now, no single worker could say they were a bootmaker or a furniture maker. They just did one small thing, day in and day out. In this new arrangement, a tiny handful of people, the capitalists, owned the means of production, or the means by which goods were produced. The workers, without the means of production, were left with only one thing to sell: their own labor. That same arrangement persists to this day, and the psychological effects are the same. Workers become alienated from themselves and their own autonomy and dignity, from their fellow human beings, and from the product of their labor. Let's take a quick look at all three. First, alienation from the self. When you go to work for the capitalist, when you surrender your autonomy and become a cog in their machine, you experience a distinct loss of control over your own destiny and sense of self. The things you produce are no longer an act of self-expression, as a fine pair of boots was to the bootmaker, but rather an endlessly repeated task that is dictated to you by someone else. For the vast majority of people, your job has nothing whatsoever to do with your goals, your desires, what you want to do with your life.
I mean, yes. I feel like we're missing a lot of stuff behind the scenes here. But there are... This is a 19-minute video. So a company that averaged 100 reviews in a month jumped to 500. Yeah, also, like... Can we explain the fact that there are a lot of seemingly openings, but not a lot of applications being taken in? So the openings are there, but not a lot of applications are being taken, right? Or am I having this wrong sourcing? It's a weird take because there's only 19 minutes to condense like way more complicated concepts here. Also, I do think it's a bit reductive.
It's simply a way to make sure you don't starve, that you can keep a roof over your head and pay your bills. In a sense, this
HR didn't get better at their job.
Reduces human beings to little more than animals, acting only out of the direct need for self-preservation, that very most basic need.
What's not to get nervous about? It's the most terrifying thing most people do.
Oi.
Second, alienation from other people and society at large. Once you accept the capitalist conception of society, the traditional and natural view of other human beings as friends and community,
there is a well-known behavioral dynamic in employees that explains a lot of this. When someone is activated to interview for a job, they are valuable in the labor market and they will generally get a new job within 60 days regardless of what activated them. This effect also causes your coworkers to activate, and this can cascade if it spikes. Job postings can cause activation, so I think we're in a runaway effect. Wait, so does that mean that this is just going to continue like a self-propelling snowball? A snowball that has been let go?
is destroyed. Each other person becomes a threat, a challenge to be overcome. What if they take your job? What if they get the promotion and you don't? What if they're willing to work for less money? This fear, caused entirely by a system that pits humans against one another for advancement and even mere survival, causes intense feelings of separation, of being apart from other human beings. And for far too many people, it becomes accepted as normal, as the way things are. Third, alienation from the product of your labor. In a capitalist society, for 99% of the population, what you produce does not belong to you. You sell your labor in exchange for a wage, and whatever you produce during the hours you've sold becomes the property of the capitalist. That property is then sold, netting the capitalist a healthy profit. In stark contrast to workers owning the means of production, the bootmaker, for example, the products workers produce under capitalism do not benefit the worker at all. In fact, they become yet another challenge to overcome. Whereas the bootmaker can make a pair of boots, and then they are his to do with whatever he likes, wear them or sell them, workers in a factory may produce 100 TVs a day and own none of them. They would have to pay the money they receive in their wage to buy the very thing that they have produced with their labor.
Howdy, howdy. I think so. I'm still researching. It's a ton of work. I'm examining 6 years of job data, mapping it to hundreds of millions of LinkedIn profiles. Whew. Oh, man. There's no... Jesus Christ. Hundreds of millions. Wow. There's no existing data set for this kind of analysis, so I'm having to build it. A lot of tools to make it work. Wow. That's terabytes of text data. Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Well, I mean, if you're able to give us some type of... If you're able to give us some type of waypoint as to why... I don't know, like, how long that's probably going to take. I suspect that it's going to take months and months. I suspect that it's going to take months and months and months. But if you could give us a waypoint, an insight, or something to point us in a direction as to why this is happening, that would be cool. Well, that's always a big issue. That's been a consistent thing, Dick Rickles. That's always been like a thing. They want to operate under the most minimum amount without needing to hire more people than they need to, right? That's kind of like standard procedure. I mean, I could tell you right now, I can tell you right now, almost every company engages in that. I've seen it time and time again. I'm hopeful that this will raise wages. It's a rare opportunity, that's for sure. For sure, we've seen this trend where worker power has been definitely the highest it has been for a while. Sandy Hook families just settled a lawsuit with the gun company. I don't know if that's good or bad. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it could be that the gun companies are so powerful that they are willing to continue this and the families just can't, and they're willing to settle. It could just be that the gun companies themselves are not willing to continue this, and instead of digging their grave deeper, they're just going to settle and be done with it. So I'm not quite sure, Tendera. It could be either one. It could be the families just like saying just the families like saying that they won't be able to continue litigation or anything like that because the gun companies are going to wait them out. They have more money, more resources, and they figured that they might as well just stop here. Or the gun manufacturer companies or the gun companies have already decided that they're the ones that are going to cut their losses here. I'm not sure. I'm hopeful this will raise wages. Yes, it is. It is a rare opportunity. Companies like landlords only want only products and profits with absolute control. I mean, yeah, that's why that's why you would be a capitalist. You're the one that wants to control everything in terms of how your in terms of how your operations go.
That's alienation in a nutshell, and it's an essential feature of capitalism. It also goes a long way towards explaining why so many people are miserable in their jobs. In a time when simply going to work could mean dying, when your existing economic precarity is made worse by a global pandemic, and when billionaires become even more massively wealthy as 1 million of your fellow human beings die, it should be very clear why so many Americans are leaving their jobs. They're beginning to understand the problem. Let's take a look at some numbers. In November of 2021, 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs. That is an enormous figure. A few months prior, in August, 4.3 million quit. Across the entirety of 2021, an average of 3.95 million workers quit every month. According to one poll, over half of Americans are looking for a new job, or simply want to leave their current one. That's not a blip. That is the beginning of something very big. The media is calling it the Great Resignation, and the New York Times, finger on the pulse as always, compared the trend to a virus, calling it a quitagion, and postulating how companies could inoculate themselves from this horrible illness. It's pretty telling that when American workers begin to show the slightest glimmer of class consciousness.
Thank you for the follow, appreciate that. If your hourly wage worker, historically high inflation has ended up boosting your buying power as wages go up, middle class tend to see buying power diminish by inflation. It is only useful for what I call job data, but the US labor is essentially useless, so I cannot rely on it. The wage increase these companies give are almost always useless because they don't keep up with inflation. To a degree, yeah, basically. If inflation is going up and your wages don't keep up with it, then you didn't get a pay raise, you got a pay cut. Yeah. Depending on how inflation goes.
The paper of note comes out crying that these normal, hardworking
In this case, it might be beneficial because I believe that the causes of inflation will eventually go away.
People are a disease to be protected against. That should tell you something about where the interests of this country lie. So,
True.
What are businesses doing in response to this surge of resignations? Well, they're obviously complaining like they always do. No one wants to work anymore, my labor shortage. But common sense would have you believe that the logic of the free market would force these companies to compete, right? To offer the best incentives in order to win over potential employees. As socialists have been trying to explain for well over a century, the logic of capitalism is exploitation, plain and simple. Extract as much value as possible by whatever means necessary. Offering benefits cuts into the bottom line. It's not immediately profitable in the short term, even though it would clearly increase hiring and retention. Their solution in this scenario? Bring back child labor. If adults won't work, let's press their kids into service. Multi-billion-dollar companies like Mcdonald's are now offering reduced pay positions for 14 and 15-year-olds. And trucking companies are flirting with the idea of allowing teenage drivers to...
I've actually seen that. I've actually seen that for trucking, especially. There was an article saying that they were trying to, I think it was like they were trying to lobby federal regulation or something like that to see if they can get younger people, kids, to work. Hold on. The federal government is moving forward with a plan to let teenagers drive big rigs from state to state in a test program. Currently, truckers who cross state lines must be 21 years old, but an apprenticeship program required by Congress to help ease the supply chain backlogs would let 18 to 20-year-old truckers drive outside their home states. We will not likely see prices to go down unless we go into full-blown recession and do austerity instead of stimulus, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Yikes. You think so? You think it's here to stay?
Capitalists, it's the perfect plan. You get a cog in your machine for cheaper than you could before, and your new workers are even less likely to understand they're being exploited because they're literal children. Okay, before we get to the solutions, let's take a look at one last problem. A few months ago, CNBC put out a video on this same topic, and in that video, they suggested there are 3 ways to improve your work life. Individually talking to your manager about why you're not enjoying work, starting a side hustle, or looking for a new job. Here's the problem. None of those things will improve your work life. Complaining to your manager alone, you're fired, easily replaced by another desperate worker. Taking on a side hustle, you'll just end up even more burned out than before. Plus the fact that side hustle in the year of our Lord 2022 just means selling your soul to any number of gig economy scams, where you're not only paid peanuts for running yourself and your car into the ground, but you get even less protection and stability than in your current garbage job. Their third solution is simply to find another job. That seems to be the route most people are taking, but here's the issue. Low wages, unsafe working conditions, and a complete lack of benefits are par for the course across the entire US labor landscape. Odds are whatever job you find will put you right back in that terrible position. This framing is a huge problem. Just like everything under capitalism, your choices are reduced to individual responsibility. Want to solve climate change? Buy more paper straws.
True.
Want a more representative government? Just get out there and vote harder.
Well, I mean, Yeah. Despite market magic rhetoric, prices do not really follow a simple demand curve. Companies charge what they know they can get away with. They only hesitate on raising prices because of the risk. Lowering prices does not move more widgets. So since prices are already up, companies are getting away with it, and we will not see them go down. Prices are going down in the same way white-collar workers are going back into the office. These things have now been proven to work, so they will continue. Jesus. That's nothing to do with supply chain backwards and everything to do with union busting and keeping wages down. Well, that is part of it, yes.
So it shouldn't be a surprise that a capitalist mainstream news network presents your options in this intentionally limited way. But you guys are smart. You can tell that CNBC very obviously left out the only real solution to immediately improve your work experience. Well, the only one I can openly advocate for on YouTube: unionization. And fortunately, it looks like the American people as a whole are starting to catch on. The pandemic has raised the consciousness of countless Americans.
This part is true. This part is true. This has been certainly a perfect time for labor to increase their power, to increase their leverage. That's true.
More workers becoming fed up with being exploited and worked to death for next to nothing. But are you ready for some really good news? In January of this year, we officially doubled the number of union certification elections filed in 2021. That is really promising. Much of this new union activity is driven by Starbucks workers.
Yep.
Just weeks after the first corporate Starbucks store unionized in Buffalo, New York,
yep,
54 more stores in 19 states have filed for their own union elections.
True.
If you're trying to make
like other massive corporations, has gone on the record to say that they don't need a union. It'll just get in the way of running a smooth operation and make things harder for the workers. We're all just one big happy team anyway.
We're all just
want to
family.
Bring on a union and make us sad? Won't you think of your executives' feelings? Of course, this is just a slimy union busting tactic.
True.
These companies are desperate not to have to deal with unionization, because unions, unlike individual workers, actually have bargaining power. Ask any union worker what happened after their store unionized. Depending on the industry, it's not unheard of to see wages double after unionization. It's no wonder corporations don't want it to happen, because that will cut into their unconscionable tens of millions of dollars in executive salaries. Those executives don't produce value, their workers do. And with a union, those workers can get more of the money they deserve and far better treatment than what they're suffering without union representation. You've probably all seen this meme. It's funny, but it's at least partly accurate. Alone, and with the mindset induced by life under capitalism, you are powerless. You will never gain an inch of ground against corporate interests. But with collective action, you can hit them where it hurts, right in the wallet. Now, I said I'd have concrete actions for you to take, and I do. Here's how you can help raise class consciousness and revitalize the American labor movement. First, if you are currently employed and your job isn't unionized, you can reach out to established organizations like the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World. They've got a form on their website where you can provide a little info and get in touch with expert organizers who can help you unionize your workplace. If you're not employed, or if your job is unionized, you can still help this process by handing out pamphlets or other information in the stores you visit. Just be subtle about it. You don't want to get the employees in trouble. The IWW has a variety of documents you can print out and distribute to those who would like to learn more about what it means to be part of a union.
At my warehouse, they're very open about opinions of unions. We've been told many times that they've
plenty of industries have
fired
specific
a whole
unions.
floor before. I mean, depending on how that was done, that's just flat out illegal. Even if you get the job, no real benefits or profits for employees, and maybe 11% after 50 hours a week. True. Jesus. There are tons of studies showing the difference between good and poor CEOs. He's flat out wrong. I don't know.
For workers in that field. A quick search online will get you the info relevant to you or your area. You don't have to limit your agitating to your local stores either. You can distribute literature and resources online. Anywhere there are disgruntled workers, there's room for you to make a positive difference. For those who have a knack for the visual arts, consider making flyers for your local organizing groups, unions, or Socialist Party chapters. If you have a social media presence, use your voice to help educate people and raise class consciousness. It may all be old news to you, but there are so many people out there who have never heard this stuff. And if you can make an impact on one person, they may go on to win over other people. It's a collective effort, and we all have a role to play. Millions of workers are quitting their jobs, but if we don't seize the day and help explain why work under capitalism is terrible, this new movement will fizzle out, because people still have to feed their families, and labor under capitalism is the only game in town. It is our responsibility as organizers, educators, and decent human beings to help our fellow workers understand the root cause of their problems, and to work towards a future where the means of production are controlled by the many, not the few. Building this new labor movement is a step in the right direction. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is made possible by my patrons on Patreon.
Okay. Yep, so there you have it. Please keep in mind again that this is all, first of all, streamlined into a less than 20-minute video, so there's a lot of things missing here. But nonetheless, I think that the idea of labor increasing their power is good. I do think that the critiques of capitalism are worthy of noting, especially of exploitation and things like that. Especially now with working conditions, crap wages. Yeah. Would it be off topic to prospect about the prospect of a maximum wage? How would that work? Do you mean a maximum wage on CEOs? There are many women legislators and CEOs, you just don't know their names. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Yes, on CEOs and higher level executives. Yeah, I don't know how to approach that. Because you could just say that why not just tax the ever-living hell out of them? The only way to implement a max wage is via tax. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Why not just tax them? After you make a certain amount of money, you just get slammed with taxes. The Sandy Hook family's won $75 million. I still don't know if it's good until the news conference. Well, yeah, like I said, it just depends on the reasoning behind the settlement. It's more about forcing them to pay their workforce better, but that's not how you do it, though. That the maximum wage on like a CEO wouldn't really fix that, right? Go back to the 90% top bracket of the 50s. That's an idea. That's an idea, Dustin. How's it going? That won't fix the issue of getting wages up. We should have a 90% top marginal rate. We can argue about where that is, but at some point we should make a point to prevent wealth gaps. That being said, wages are not really who highly wealthy people make money. That being said, wages are not really how highly wealthy people make money. Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So you wouldn't really solve that problem by creating like a top maximum wage. You would just say, we go back to marginal tax rates that are much more higher, like we used to have, and we were pretty successful at deploying that. back in the 50s. They make the tax law so we will get nothing. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Oof. Yeah, all of these things should be, but the reality is, how likely is it that we're actually going to get Congress to adopt a marginal tax rate of 90%? There was a big problem with President Joe Manchin, even at the thought of raising corporate taxes by a few percentage points or back to where the Obama rates were. How did the 90% happen last time? Overwhelming support. I'm trying to look at information from back in the 50s. Often the taxes on wages and not dividends. Yes, but you can make capital gains taxes, right? Right, we couldn't even get them to undo their Trump cuts, right? Corporate tax thing is especially frustrating because the people buy the lie so easily. If we raise corporate tax, they will not be able to invest in growth. This completely ignores the reality that companies are taxed on profits, not total revenue. Increasing corporate tax rate actually forces companies to do reinvestment so they can avoid the taxes. Right. That's right. I'm trying to see how this happened back then. I mean, like, definitely during the FDR days, I think the Democratic control was way more... the Democratic control, I think, was larger, and FDR had a much better, definitely much more functioning government. Dividends are taxed but at a lesser rate to irregular income, as corporate taxes are paid prior to dividend payouts. What do you think about VAT taxes? I haven't studied it much, but I think it's better than our loophole system. I mean, there's a lot of countries that use VAT taxes instead. Unfortunately, economics is not my thing. But there are plenty of countries that use VAT taxes, and it seems to be okay. Sales taxes are regressive. Should we switch them for VAT taxes then? US is one of the few developed nations that don't have a VAT. Gotcha. And Trump just proven the fossil fuel companies. As Trump has just proven, and fossil fuel companies do too. Companies and profit tax and end up with the government paying out to the companies for fake losses. Well, or overinflated or underinflated. I mean, the way the tax system works is pretty convoluted, and so therefore companies can take advantage of it. You can avoid taxable events in this corporate tax, but not with a VAT. Gotcha. Yeah, companies often avoid a lot of taxes that they're supposed to pay, because as long as you have a lot of money and resources, you can pay people to help you with that. I failed to see how a VAT tax does anything useful. Yeah, I don't understand like what the ramifications are of value-added taxes. But it seems to be very popular. A value-added tax is a consumption tax on goods and services that is levied at each stage of the supply chain where value is added from initial production to the point of the sale. The amount of VAT the user pays is based on the cost of the product minus any cost of materials in the product that have already been taxed at a previous stage. Oh, I wouldn't switch this out for income taxes. What? Critics argue that the VAT tax is essentially a regressive tax that places an undue economic burden on low-income consumers while increasing the bureaucratic burden on businesses. A manufacturer of electronic components purchases raw material made out of various metals from a dealer. The dealer is a seller at that point. In the production chain, the dealer charges a 1 plus 10-cent VAT tax and sends that 10% to the government. The manufacturer uses raw materials. Yeah. $2 plus a 20-cent VAT tax. It increases tax revenue from corporations. It allows taxes to be taken all the way instead of at the end of the year. So corporations can't tank the revenue. Then you rebate VAX to allow low-income earners so that is revenue neutral to them. Hey, Hola Bostios, how's it going? The UK, the VAT tax is paid by consumers at 20%. Corporations are not avoiding taxes because of magic. We let them. A VAT certainly makes it more difficult for companies to avoid tax, but it could just enforce corporate tax policy without adding the burden to everybody. Maybe. It just seems like sales tax with extra steps. It just seems like a convoluted sales tax with extra steps. Alright, folks. It is getting close to that time. It is 11:28, folks. I want to thank you guys for hanging out here. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate each and every one of you guys here. That is considered a good tax because it's universal and hard to evade. Right. One of the best ways to hit companies harder on tax would be to force them to pay tax on whatever they report to shareholders. As it stands now, we allow corporations to lie to one or both parties. I believe Astro touched on that. This will, they would show profits to shareholders and then tell the IRS, yeah, we're in the red this year. Yeah. Yeah. I have a thought experiment for you. What if we only pay income tax like a corporation so we spend all our money? No taxes. Yeah, that's true. There's documented frauds on everything. Yeah, that also is a good point. I believe Astro also pointed that out as well. They just lie about their income. Alright folks, that being said, thank you guys so much for hanging out here. Thank you, Sourcing. Thank you, James. Thank you, Heat420. I see you. Thank you, Alio. Thank you all for the new follows. Thank you, Dr. Dragon Rider, for the sub. Appreciate that. You guys are what makes this channel grow. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that follow button. It does help us out, and you get 5 free emotes. Join the Discord. Join the, hey. Don't forget it's Discount Chocolate Day. Okay. Don't join the Discord. Join the YouTubes. Hit that big red subscribe button. Spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Thank you, Sourcing. Dropping some good knowledge in there. Alright, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. See ya.